Welcome to Because the Beatles, the podcast about the Beatles, everything about the Beatles, 24/8. I'm Allison.
And I'm Erica. And before we start, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcast or wherever you get your podcasts, or stream us on Spotify and YouTube. And if you're enjoying BC the Beatles, feel free to leave us a preferably 5-star review so other Beatlemaniacs can find us.
Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter/X, and TikTok. We'll be posting videos, photos, and more from this episode and beyond. And you can always email us at bcthebeatles@gmail.com. And we have another amazing episode today.
Oh my God. Our guest today is the fabulous, the wonderful May Pang. We are so excited to welcome her onto BC
So
the
excited.
Beatles. May needs no introduction, but just a short background. May began her career in the music industry at ABKCO and Apple Records before transitioning into being John and Yoko's personal assistant. 3 years later, Yoko came to her with a strange request: to be John's lover and companion during a period of separation. This became his quote-unquote lost weekend from 1974 to 1975, in which he and May split time between New York City and LA. May was witness to many of the tall tales that populate the period, including John's infamous heckling of the Smothers Brothers at the Troubadour with Harry Nilsson, the recording of John's rock and roll album with Phil Spector, and Spector firing a gun in the studio, and many more of John's drunk escapades.
Yes. And, although they technically broke up in early 1975, May and John continued to see each other through 1978. They actually had their last conversation during Memorial Day weekend in 1980 before John's sad and untimely death. In 1983, May wrote about her time with John in her book, Loving John. And in 2022, her story hit the big screen in the documentary feature, The Lost Weekend. She's also a photographer whose photos of her time with John are now on tour around the country, as well as being featured in her book, Instamatic Karma. And we're so excited to welcome May Pang.
Welcome, May.
Hey.
Thank you so much for being here.
We have so many questions for you.
Let's go.
All right, let's do this. So in preparation for today, we both reread Loving John and obviously saw The Lost Weekend. And they paint such an amazing Technicolor portrait of your time with John. I think people only know a small fragment of your story. And sometimes it's really skewed. And it's downright incorrect in a lot of places. So do you feel like you've had to set the record straight?
That's basically why, in the end, I thought about doing the documentary for myself, only because everybody was saying, I read everything about you. I know everything about you. I said, okay. And they would say, oh, you did this with John, you did that. I said, no, that's all right as well. I read it. So it must be true. It's that line, all those lies that we've heard. And it's now becoming the truth because you say it so often that you believe it. That's basically what has happened. And especially if it's another set of people that it works better for them, that the lies stay out there. John wasn't happy. He was miserable with May, so because everything they talked about, I was there. I was the one out, and a lot of people didn't even know it. In fact, when I do the exhibition, a lot of people had no idea that I even had the movie out. So when they come in, I go, have you seen my documentary? It's become like an anthem.
You should just get it on a T-shirt.
I know. I really should. And most of them, if they come early, sometimes it's a 2-day event, or if it's 3 days and they've been there the first day, they come like the last day or so, and they come in, they said, I watched the movie. I had no idea. And they come back to tell me. They try to find me and they leave me a note.
The film has so many photos and so much amazing footage. And most of those were taken by you and by John, I think, right?
Well, the photos are we got it from a lot of different people who were around us at the time. And then there were footage, some videos that I've never seen. And I don't even know where they got it from. But, you hire a service and say, are there any photos? And they say, well, they got this. And I go, where did that one come from? I've never seen this.
Yeah, there were a couple of things like B-roll type footage of you in the background or walking on the street or handling a press event. I'm like, wow, they have a high-res footage of just
I know, the
background quality.
That was done by Richard Kaufman, one of the co-producer director. They wanted to be sure the film went into 4K, and it looked so amazing.
Yeah, just the visual effects too, and the sketches and like all. It's so wonderful way to tell your story. It really brings it to life. As far as Beatles documentaries go, I felt like it was one of the best ones because it really was a dynamic way to tell this story. And as you say, people misunderstand it. So it's an easy way to sort of like get the true story.
I think the term lost weekend, and I understand why John interpreted it like that, but it's so misleading. It puts this 18-month time into this blur.
Well, yes, I didn't even know if I wanted to use it for the title of the documentary, but here is the thing. It was really more the directors who came up with that. But if you didn't use it, they wouldn't know the time frame. So we changed it by saying The Lost Weekend, a love story. This movie was truly an independent film. We had to raise the money to get this movie made because there were some people that said, oh, we like to invest in your movies, but they wanted a say in it. And they're saying, no. The directors, the co-directors, they wanted to honor my thoughts. This was coming from me. This is not coming from anywhere else. And if somebody else had a say in it, it may not be what I wanted.
Nobody has a perspective on this time period in John's life that you have. Nobody else could tell the story. Nobody else should tell the story.
Be surprised.
I know. Everybody does tell the story, but they shouldn't do it.
Yes. And your story in general is so fascinating because I was particularly struck by how you came to work at Apple and ABKCO, which you just waltzed right in and said, oh, Apple Records is in this building. I'm going to go up there and see if I can get a job. And sure enough, can you type? Yes. Can you file? Yes. And you did it.
How I felt was, well, if they said no, I'm no better off. Or, no is no. And so if they didn't hire me, I didn't lose anything. But they did. I was shocked. And I got a job for the following week. And I said, yes. But again, I always say that the universe, angels and the universe, they had something else in mind. I did not know that I would be put in all these positions where I was supposed to be. I'd be working for John and Yoko, or I would end up meeting George or Ringo or whatever. And all of a sudden, everything just started to fall into place. And I'm saying, how did this work? I couldn't question it any longer. It's just there.
Yeah, it was so kismet the way you went from that job and just moved into being, John and Yoko's personal assistant, and then moving into the Dakota to work. And then, of course, then you got the craziest request ever.
Okay, so you're working for them for 3 years, which I think another thing that people probably didn't know is just how long you were with them before any of this started.
Well, it's true because people said, where did you come from? Oh, you were probably just there. You were paid. People don't have a clue. I was not paid when I was with John. Yoko had already cut that one off. She made sure that I wasn't going to get paid. And that's fine. I wasn't looking for money. When John and I went off with each other, we went off as boyfriend, girlfriend, not looking for money. Even when we split, the lawyer came to John and said, you got to give her something. She needs to move. And somebody else couldn't believe that I should get anything.
Somebody else, yeah.
Somebody else. And so wasn't it enough that she lived there? So it was on that level. I did not do the asking, but it was the lawyer said, you need to do something.
I'm glad you had somebody fighting for your behalf.
I never asked for anything. And in the end, when that was asked and she made the comment, apparently I was told, because I wasn't there, she was asked to leave the room by John.
And she meaning Yoko?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to clarify.
Yeah, to leave the room so that he can continue the discussion with the lawyer.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Wow. I mean, and not to mention too, it's like, you were, with John in LA when he was recording, but you were also doing work. Like you were arranging the sessions, you were getting all the players together. You were working with him to hunt down those Phil Spector tapes. Like you were actually doing business, when he...
Yeah, no, I definitely did. I arranged for all the stuff that he was doing. He asked me if I really wanted to do it. And I said, yes. I said, what's the sense? I said, I don't want to sit at home. I'm not one of those girlfriends. Let me sit at home, twiddle my thumbs, I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, I got to do something here. And I knew the routine. I knew what to do. I knew who he liked to talk to or whatever. And that's what it is. A lot of people had no idea that phone calls that we kept coming in. I'm sure you read that.
Crazy town.
Yeah, crazy. It was just all that all at once, and I wanted to do it. And John said, okay. And this way, he didn't have to have a million people that he had to talk to. He could just say, May, I need this. That's okay, fine.
Well, you were taking care of him emotionally, physically, spiritually, sexually. I mean, you did everything for him in that time.
Yeah. And I know he appreciated it because we would have these conversations, So it's okay. Because I knew it, he knew it, and we just kept it to ourselves.
I do want to ask, because you brought up Yoko, what was that like to have basically a third person on the phone all the time? How did that affect you emotionally?
You were so young.
And you handled it so well.
This is one of those myths where everybody thought that I had to report to her. I never reported to her. That was in her mind.
Like the opposite.
Yeah, I never reported. It got to the point, she used to call anywhere from 1 or 2 phone calls a day to like 15 a day, just over nothing. And it got to the point, the phone call would come in and I know it would be her. And I'll go, hello, hi. And just go like this and just hand the phone out. Wouldn't even say a word. And then it got to the point that John didn't want to talk on the phone. It was like ridiculous. And he'd go, yeah, okay, can we call you later? And hang up. If John didn't really want to speak to Yoko, he would just quickly get her off the phone. And then she calls back and she sensed it. And she would say, why'd you put him on the phone if he was in a bad mood? I said, he wasn't in a bad mood.
Until you called.
Yeah, I really heard from you.
And you could hear the fuming on the other end of the phone. And I said, he wasn't in a bad mood. And she couldn't say anything to me.
Even if this wasn't to do with John Lennon, this would be one of the most interesting relationship structures I think I've ever heard about. The whole thing is just fascinating.
Well, you know what? It's only in hindsight I knew that she wanted to keep a lid on everything. But what people don't realize is that she also was wanting to go out with other people. But that's not said. It's only in my corner.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, so speaking of John, because we should probably talk about him for a second. We talked a minute ago that, Erica's in New York, I'm in LA, and this sort of bi-coastal aspect of John was really interesting to me too. He just seemed so different, when he was in LA versus when he was in New York. LA was chaos and it was destruction and it was violence at times, which I think it speaks to the strength of your character that you're able to withstand that, because that was really powerful to me, especially in reading the book about how violent he was towards you. But on the flip side, in New York, he was peaceful and tranquil.
I'm going to have to, I have to explain that. When Warner Books put that out, they made it worse than it should have been. The violence is not as violent as you'd think. He was drunk and he would never remember. He would say, all right, May, and then he'd just push me to the side, and I'll go, okay. And I felt that, but it wasn't to the point of black and blue marks. I had none of those things. It was not that level. But, sells books, doesn't it?
Well,
my book was on the heels of the book about the Doors.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a big, violent book. And I kept saying to him, don't want you to change too much. I said, it doesn't work like that. You don't understand this. Great. And they didn't want to hear it. And I'm like, oh, God. And I'm not saying that he wasn't mean when he was drunk, because he was with all these guys, all of them, the whole lot of them, the whole musician group. They were like, oh, the guys are going to go out. Forget about the women. It's like they pushed them to the side. And I had to deal with that. I mean, I got to the point I saw what was happening. I remember when Phil Spector said, John, you're going to come with me. And I said, I'm going with you. And Phil said, no, you're not. I said, yes, I am. And I said, I'm going to go with you guys. And he goes, no, you're not. He actually had his bodyguard, George, pick me up literally and move me.
Oh, my God.
So I couldn't get in the car. So that's the type of thing that went on. John would not realize it because he's drunk with his friends, all having fun and until whatever. And so I'm the one left there and trying to hold down the fort. And of course, I didn't drink. If you gave me Coca-Cola, that's all I would drink. So that's what it was.
Well, I'm glad that you are setting that record straight too, because I'm sure people who read the book, and yeah, I think that's common that like it becomes more salacious to sell books. So I'm glad that you rectified that.
I really got upset because they made it more salacious than it should have been. I'm not saying that he didn't push me to the side or I bumped against the wall or he grabbed my hair. My hair was longer then. And he pulled my ponytail or whatever. Yeah. But it wasn't to the point where everybody thought, oh, what, I didn't have any black and blue marks. I wasn't in that. It was not that type of thing. And I would just get so frustrated that, that it would be that. And I was pissed. I was angry at Phil because he caused it. He put out the drinks. We never had drinks at our sessions before. And I'm going, what is this? By the time Phil Spector came to the session, everybody was sloshed. 2 or 3 hours later, he shows up.
He just seemed to be an agent of chaos, that guy.
He was a horror. He really was. And then the other one that would have he wasn't, the opposite of girls want to have fun, guys want to have fun, is Harry Nilsson. He's the other one.
Yes. Well, the Hollywood vampires, here we go, And they even had a softball team, the Hollywood Vampires.
I know. Been talking
which is so funny.
Yeah, but luckily, as you remember, John was just an honorary member.
Yes, he was.
Yes.
A side member. Yes.
Well, on the other side of the country, this is one of my favorite parts about your story. We associate John in the 70s, especially, with being almost the essence of New York City. And the Bob Gruen photo with him with the T-shirt and him in Central Park and the Dakota and everything. But you taught him how to be a New Yorker. The book and to some extent the film walks us through how he turned into that version of John thanks to you taking him out of his comfort zone. How did you get him to that point?
Well, it started earlier. We would come back. A lot of people thought we were in LA. We lived there. And I said, no, we actually lived in New York. And we come back to New York a lot. And I remember February of 74. And we were in New York pushing things and it was cold. And we were actually living in my studio apartment. Can you imagine John Lennon living in a studio no bigger than this room, So he said, what do you think we should do today? And I said, you always wanted to know what it was like outside and what New York was about. Let's get on a bus ride. And he says, what do you mean? I said, we're going to go on a bus. And he goes, you're kidding. I said, no, let's just go on a bus. So we got on a bus on Lexington Avenue, just going down. We were on 89th, coming down. And then we finally got off around 23rd, finally some crowded people going, hey, John. And he goes, hey. And you hear the guy go, I told you it was him. And John to me, and he goes, time to get off. So I got a picture of us on the bus years later because the bus blocked this guy in. They was waiting for the bus to move, and he was a photographer instructor. And he took his camera out, and he took a photo of John and myself on the bus.
Oh, that was handy.
And he said, right, this is now 1974. I did not see these photos till 2002 or 3.
Wow. I love the kind of contrast between you forcing him on the bus and his life on the other side of the equation where Yoko loved the stretch limousine. So he had two different, very opposite experiences of the New York lifestyle.
Yes, especially we were going to the Sgt. Pepper opening, and the limo comes, and we're getting in, and I go in the front, and he goes, what are you doing? I said, I'm not sitting in the back. And he goes, why not? I said, we're picking up other people. Why would I want to get stuck back there with everybody else? I'll sit comfortably in the front, because in those days, it wasn't bucket seats. It was just straight across, bench seats. And I said, I'd rather sit in the front. And he thought about it, and he went, move over. I'm going to sit in the front with you guys.
Aw.
I love it. And so the driver had no idea that all of a sudden he's got John Lennon sitting in the front. Oh, my God, And
That's so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
I think something else, another myth that you're sort of busting, and you go into it obviously a lot more in the book and touch on it in the movie as well, is exactly how long your relationship lasted with John. The last time that you saw each other was 1978. Correct.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah. I saw him in 78, but I did speak to him in 1980 because he was trying to figure out a time for us to get together.
and he called you from Cape Town, right?
Yeah.
So exotic.
I know, right? Cape Town, South Africa.
So random.
Yeah. And it was apparently it was something that Yoko said, you know how Yoko is. She wanted me to do an East meets West. So I just got on a plane and that's what it was. And I said, oh. And he goes, I sent you something and I don't know if you'd know it was really me or not. And I said, oh, okay, I'm curious now. And it turns out it was a postcard. What he used to do is that fans or whoever sends him postcard. So he crossed out his name and he left the body of the message. It was in a foreign language. And then he wrote out my address. But it wasn't my exact address. It just had my name and then the approximate street I lived on and what avenue. And it got to me.
Amazing.
That's crazy. What a funny little quirk to send like used postcards to regift a postcard.
Great. He did that all the time. He loved it. Didn't waste anything.
I would love to get a postcard like that.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
of course, that's in the movie. I still have all these little things.
Your collection must be amazing.
Little things here and there.
I did want to talk just a second about Yoko, too, because she is such a big part of this. And Erica mentioned her calling and that kind of thing. Going back to the book again, how did she react to the book when you put your story out? Because I know you said that John would want you to tell your story. As you say, like you're a first-hand witness to this period in his life. But did Yoko have a reaction or did that inspire her to then put out her angle?
No idea because she did enough angles from a lot of different...
Fair, yes.
For me, when I put it out, my very first interview, nerve-wracking, my very first was Good Morning America.
Baptism by fire.
And it was David Hartman who did it. He had to read, and I had no idea he was going to do this. He had to read a little statement from Elliot Mintz, who represented Yoko, and said that nothing in the book was true. And I said, okay. And I said, that's what you want to believe. That's fine. I said, most people know if it's true because they were there,
Elliot Mintz was there.
Well, you have to know whose side is he on.
Yeah. True.
And that's where that goes.
Well, somebody who was there, thanks to you, was Julian. I loved seeing footage of you guys in the documentary. I thought it was so sweet. I love when you come up behind him and give him a little squeeze. It like warmed my heart.
He did not always do that. Yeah.
It's so cute. And I love that he used one of your photographs for his latest album, the cover of that.
I just found out, and I say this, so little messages, right? Because people didn't realize that John and I still saw each other behind the scenes. But he asked if he could use a photograph that I took of John for the single of Imagine that was being released in the UK. So I said, sure, of course you can. So I have a father, and now the son has got the album cover of a photo I've taken. So it's a father and son thing. But I did not know, and a friend of mine said, did you see? I said, see what? He goes, he released Imagine in England on your birthday. I said, are you sure? And he goes, yes. I only found this out not that long ago because I don't keep up with that stuff, It is, that stuff is more the, what do I call it? The more real Beatle-file people that really intense on, how many grooves are in this or that?
That's not us either.
No,
It's not.
Yeah, so I looked it up and sure enough, it was there. And then he put out, this is in his lifetime. So and there was another record he put out also on my birthday.
Aww.
So there are two. So it's kind of interesting when certain things happen, it falls into alignment.
Well, it sounds like you were such a sweet and stabilizing force in his life, getting to know John better, forcing John to keep a regular calling schedule for him, like really making him face up to being a father.
He needed, and because you saw the movie, you know the reason. I wanted that, and it was very important to me. I also gave Cynthia a time where she can finally have closure with John after all these years, you know, that she didn't get a chance to. So it was a lot of things. It was all meant to be. Cynthia and I were very close, and believe me, it was very heartbreaking for me to know when she was dying, you know, and when she died, I was just devastated.
So what misconceptions about John do you feel that the public is intent on keeping?
Well, a lot of people think that, John and I, that I was just there for a couple of weeks and that'll be the end.
That you were a paramour.
Yeah, and I was just a mistress. I think that mistress because we lived apart from where he lived with Yoko. It was never planned for him to go back because she asked for a divorce. He said yes. Even she was like trying very desperately. At one point, she started saying something. She goes, I want to throw a party for our divorce and all this. And it got on John's nerve after a while. It's like, let's hurry up with this divorce already. And, you know, he got very upset because she kept, it was a delayed tactic on all levels. Till finally, she says, listen, I've had enough. Let's do it and get it done and over with, and hung up on her. She never called back for a few days.
Nice break for you.
Yes, but you knew that there was something else coming. Mm-hmm. You have to think, what's the next step? If you follow in line, there's a lot of things that she kept saying that hopefully that she thought was going to be his reaction. And when it didn't happen the way she thought, that's when she started to freak out because nothing was going in the direction that she wanted.
Right. That seems to do much less with you or with John than with her and David Spinoza, maybe, or whatever was going on in her private life.
People don't realize that she just wanted to be out there. And if she wanted to go after you, she was just, you know, relentless. You know, you're like, oh my God, she's here, you know. So it was very difficult, you know, and not many people knew that she wasn't sitting alone in her ivory tower, as it would be up there, because she wanted to go out with the other guys.
As magnanimous and spiritual, maybe, as she wanted to give the impression of. And it's funny because you were so young, and maybe she thought that she had picked somebody young to manipulate, but you're tough, and you were able to withstand a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't even think of it like that. I just said, okay, I just rolled with whatever was happening. Didn't have time to think. I just did what I had to do. I remember talking to Jerry Rubin. Remember him?
Yeah.
The Chicago 7.
Yeah.
Apparently,
political activist.
Yeah. She was very close to him. I met a lot of the members. I happened to like Rennie Davis. Jerry was okay. Abby Hoffman. I really liked them. They were nice people. Jerry, I read a newspaper and I remember saying, oh, here he is. I said, he's working on Wall Street. And I'm saying, Wall Street? Man was like wanting to overthrow everything. He's on Wall Street.
Yeah.
So I called him up because I saw it in the newspaper. He answered the phone. I said, is this Jerry? He goes, yeah, who's this? And I said, Jerry, it's May. And he goes, how did you find me? I said, how did I find you? You're in every newspaper. What are you talking about? How did I find you? It's like, what are you, out of your mind? You're in the paper saying where you work. So we started talking, and at the end he goes, do you speak to Yoko? And I said, no. Do you? And he went, yes. And I was like a little taken aback, and I went, oh. I said, anything interesting? Might as well.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm just going to tell you, she really was quite taken aback. She didn't think your relationship with John would last more than 2 weeks.
Wow.
Lovely. So I said, oh, okay. You know, I was just keeping it above board. I said, no, that's interesting. Because, yeah, really didn't think that John was going to stick with you.
At the risk of being a little punny, surprise, surprise.
I had to.
That was a good one.
And
Thank you.
now with Number 9 Dream, everybody found out through the movie that it's my voice.
I never knew that. That was
I didn't either.
Yeah.
What was that like to record that?
To do that is hard because I was in my forte. Some people would find it easy. Oh, yeah. I didn't find it that easy, so I had to think about this. And he's laughing in the booth. And I'm like, really? And I didn't know I was going to be doing that. Now it turned out to be the one thing that everybody knows that song, and it's my voice. But of course, it confuses people because when you see the official video, it actually had her in there, mouthing. Yeah.
Man, that's an allegory. Yeah.
So that's what it is. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Wow.
People don't realize that when John and I broke up, it definitely didn't make sense. And there's a lot more to the story. Yes, it was part of the helping him to quit smoking was our thing. That was part of it. But there was more to it. And I just sort of stepped back away from it for a minute,
Yeah.
I wasn't planning on seeing him. He would do all the calling. I had no idea. It was like, ooh, what?
Yeah. Noticed that.
So I'm not the one calling him, but he's calling me. And I'm always saying to him, are you okay? Because I was always worried about him. I said, are you happy? Are you? And he would always say, yeah. You can tell the difference. And I just wanted to be sure he was all right. It didn't sound it. And he goes, I'm going to have to say this. I'm going to be doing this. And I said, okay. I said, I'll brace myself for this.
What was that like for you to hear those untruths in the media?
The only thing that we talked about was the lost weekend because I'm going to use that phrase because people kept asking him, what was it like? You were drunk with Harry. And he goes, it was like a long lost weekend, from the movie because movies were the big things.
Right.
He goes, I know that they're going to think that it's about us, but it's not about us. But that's where it's going to go. And he says, I just want you to know, it'll be found out about you and me. I said, are you sure? He goes, oh, yeah. One day, they'll all know the true story about us.
And he was right.
That's what I said. We thought about 50 years later. It's not like,
hey, never too late,
That's not. So that's really what it was.
Yeah.
There's more to the story. Every time I tell a story, Dad, I bring up another memory. So there's other things. And, we did a lot. And then when I think about it, it's like all these key things. I happen to be the one that's there. And any time of his solo career, we did all the work together.
I was going to say he went through probably his most inspired period when he was with you.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I have that.
This has been so much fun, May. Just one last question to ask you. It's how did your time with John change you as a person? Did it affect who you are, who you've been the rest of your life?
Well, the only reason it affects me because it affected me looking for a job. There was word out that you can't hire me because he was going to be a freelance artist. So if you want John and if May's looking for a job, you can't have her there. So I got blacklisted for a bit. And so it's okay. I went through it. I came back on the other side really okay. I tell people, I said, you can't sit with it because it happened. You got to keep moving. What are you going to do? You're going to sit and wallow? I mean, I've seen more people sit and wallow, all this stuff. He left me. I said, okay. You can have time for that, but you got to keep moving after a certain amount of time. What are you going to sit there and brood forever?
Yeah.
You know why? It doesn't affect, here's the thing. It doesn't affect them. It's affecting you. Not them.
Good life advice.
And that's exactly what it is. It's like, it's not affecting them because they're not sitting at home crying for you. You're crying for you.
Yeah.
So the thing I would say is I believe in therapy. I believe in talking with friends who are good friends to listen to you, go through your strife. You can't go it alone. If you can't go through it alone, you try and find a way to, who can you talk to? Because there's a lot of self-help out there and there's people that will be online. And if you open up to a situation and you open up your life and you say, okay, I'm ready to accept something new and look at this as an experience, other things happen. And, it's that old adage, when one door closes, another one opens. And that's exactly what happens.
Very true.
That's what it comes down to.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, thank you.
If our audience wants to keep up with you, where should they go and what do you have coming up in the next couple of months or weeks?
First off, my exhibition art, they can always look at rockartshow.com. Scott, my business partner, who I call my work husband, I started laughing. I said, I don't know what to call him. He's my business associate, but he's like my work husband, and his wife just started to laugh. He has on my schedule, my touring schedule, and you can see the photos that I have, the limited prints of what I'm publishing out there. And I also I'm on Facebook. I have a YouTube channel, and I do a little thing. Did I ever tell you? And I do 1 minute clips of little stories that a lot of people wanted to know. So did I tell you that, how I met Bowie or this? So I'm gathering up all the different scenarios.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
You are a busy lady.
Yeah, so I'm putting all sorts of things because I think it's, a lot of people wanted to know. And here I am putting it out there.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
so glad you did and are doing it. And thank you so much for being here with us.
We'll link everything in our show details so everybody listening can check them out.
Yeah, because I can't tell you how many people have no idea that I have a movie out.
That's wild.
Yeah, people need to see this too.
Yeah.
And one more thing before we let you go. When we got on this call, I saw Allison and I'm like, oh my God, you're wearing Maypang glasses.
Very similar.
Yes, I do.
You know about it.
Yeah, but I still have mine. I kept them over the years. I still have them. Oh God, he was so blind. So the two of us. And then I remember wearing Elvin's glasses, and I'm going, he's worse than me. My God, oh no, really? So the three of us was like blind leading the blind.
I have so many pairs. I'm like Elton. I have so many pairs of glasses, but they spoke to me today, and now I know why. Now
There you go.
Never go.
Yes, much.
All right, well, thank you again.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we'd love to have you back sometime.
It'll be great, girls. Erica, you're in the city. I'll probably run into you at one point.
I'll look out for the purple hair.
Thank you so much, ladies. See you guys soon.
Thank you, May. Have a
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again for listening to Because the Beatles. We're so happy you could join us today for our chat with May Pang. If you'd like to see the video of our interview, you can head over to our YouTube account, and we will have that up shortly. And in the meantime, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you're listening right now. Give us a rating/review so other Beatlemaniacs can find us.
And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter/X, and TikTok. We'll be posting photos and more from this episode and beyond. And remember, you can always email us at bcthebeatles@gmail.com. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.